Thank you very much. Okay, I wonder what words or thoughts or feelings spring to mind when you first see or hear this word, faith. Now, by faith, I mean something more than believing that the England football team are ever going to win any trophy in your lifetime. Instead, I'm talking about a real strong belief in something or someone outside of yourself. Now, that might be a god or gods or a religious practice or a set of morals, something other than ourselves. Now, as youth workers, as practitioners, as people who for some reason are interested in youth work, I wonder what you think when you see and when you hear faith and youth work. Now, in my experience, there's tended to have been 4 different reactions. I'm sorry if you fall into a 5th category, but it tends to be 4 different reactions that I think are probably best summarised in quotes of youth workers. Okay, so the first thing might be you think faith in youth work is unnecessary. This was a quote from somebody who I met in Australia who said, "I don't talk about religion or God with my young people because quite frankly, I think it's a load of crap." So maybe that's your starting point. Maybe you think faith and youth work, load of rubbish. Or perhaps you're at the opposite end of the spectrum. Maybe you think actually it's really essential. This is what a worker said to me. He said, "I talk to young people about God because I believe it helps young people to see the world in a different light." Maybe that's you. Or maybe you think this, that faith in youth work is a brainwashing exercise. This is what someone said to me. "Christian youth work is nothing short of brainwashing." Maybe that's your opinion. Or maybe it's this. I don't know. The amount of people I've met who said, you know, I don't talk to young people about spiritual matters. I don't explore it with them because quite frankly, I don't know myself. I wonder what you most identify with. And I wonder if your practice really reflects your personal opinions. We're just going to hold that there. I want you to hold that there while we just talk briefly about the spiritual development of young people. Now, there's 2 main guys who I've come across called Fowler and Westerhoff. Great names. And they talk loads about spiritual development. And they say that as people, in the same way that we go through physical and emotional development, we also go through a process of spiritual development. That at any one point we ask questions that seek an answer that's outside of ourselves. And you might think, okay, that's fine, Jen, but actually I think that's a load of codswallop, and that's fine. But actually, the young people who I meet and who I encounter, they're asking questions that suggest that might be true. I've had young people come up to me and say, "Jen, who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? What is the point and the purpose to my life?" Now, those big questions require an answer. I personally don't believe that you can give an adequate answer unless you start talking about faith and have that dialogue and that encounter. Now, I wonder for you, if you're a youth worker, I wonder if you've ever used the term, "I'm a holistic worker" or a holistic practitioner. That tends to be a little bit of a buzzword in youth work circles. Now, I'm guilty. I would say that I'm a holistic worker, whatever that may mean. So much so that actually when I was being interviewed for my current job, I was like arguing the case of I'm a holistic youth worker, it really matters, you know, I smashed the table because I was that passionate and I got the job. So a tip for you there, when you're going for an interview, give it a bit of welly and you might get a job and you can come and thank me later. So for a lot of youth workers, they might say, yeah, I'm a holistic practitioner. I think the whole of a young person's life is relevant. And yet actually in reality, there's a chunk of the jigsaw that goes missing, and that chunk is normally faith. Now, faith, religion and spiritual development seem to have been taken a bit off the agenda, and I wonder why that is. See, if you go back not so long ago in youth work and kind of look what happened in youth work, where it came from, you see that there's real close links between youth work and spirituality. So you've got the work of Sunday schools, you've got the work of the YMCA, you've got the work of uniformed organisations such as like the Boys Brigade and stuff. And they really sought to cater for the personal, the social, the emotional development of young people, but also for the spiritual stuff. Faith and youth work, they were synonymous. Now that might be because of the age we were living in. You know, England was supposedly a Christian country, and therefore matters of faith were part of the kind of everyday rhetoric. and they filtered into youth work, and that was a part of it, and that was fine. But then you roll on a few years and things have changed. Things aren't so clear cut. See, if we look at youth work now and look at the climate that we live in, there's so much more religious diversity, there's religious tolerance, there's political correctness. And I think it creates a bit of a minefield that youth workers are like, man, I don't think I can walk through this, and quite frankly, I don't want to walk through this. Now, that's not to say that there's not faith-based organisations which do a great job, but I think it's fair to say that just because you work for a faith-based project, that does not mean that you fully cater for the faith and spiritual development of young people, any more than working in a hospital makes you a doctor. See, faith has been removed, yeah, I would say, from the culture of our lives and from the work that we do with young people. Now, I found this, which, yeah, you might be impressed by, you might not. So this is from the National Occupational Standards of Youth Work. See, I bet you didn't even know that existed, or that I could say it. And they say this, they say the key focus of youth work is to enable young people to develop holistically. There you go, that word again. They say working with them to facilitate their personal, social and educational development. No sight of spiritual development. And then you roll on. So the government come out with this great policy. It was called the Positive for Youth strategy. And they talk loads in great detail about the personal and social development of young people. What was missing again? Surprise, surprise, no element of spiritual development. See, I'd say not only has spiritual development been removed from government agendas, but I'd say probably more worryingly, it's been removed from the radar of youth workers. So if young people are spiritual beings, whatever that might be, if they go through a period of spiritual development, if faith's been removed from government policies, if we're living in a completely different time, what do we, as holistic practitioners, do about that? I'd say not much. And I think the reason why is because we're scared. We're fearful. And I'd say we're fearful of four things. Firstly, we're fearful that we're going to upset people. We're fearful that if we talk about faith, we're going to upset young people. We're going to upset their parents. We're going to upset our colleagues. And, you know, the worst thing ever, we're going to upset our funders. See, time and time again, I've spoken to youth workers who chase after funding, and it makes the funders set the agenda for their work. It might be that we're fearful that we're not adequately equipped to go there. Maybe we think, do you know what, I just don't know enough about this faith stuff. I don't know enough about religion. Guys, that is a lame excuse, a lame excuse. I bet there was a time, if you're a youth worker or you've worked with young people, where you didn't know where your local sexual health clinic was. And then a young person rocks up and says, I've had unprotected sex, I need to get checked out. What do? You jump on Google, do a bit of research, you take them down there. It's a similar sort of thing. Guys, get to know, get to know. It's not enough to say, oh, I don't know. That's sloppy. Or it might be, we're fearful that our own faith and our own beliefs will be called into question. That we think, do you know what, I just can't go there with a young person, talk about the spiritual stuff, because it might challenge me in what I believe. I don't think that's appropriate, I don't think that's enough. Or it might be this, you think, I don't want to be accused of brainwashing young people. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, talking about faith with young people, yeah, that is definitely a brainwashing exercise. Forgive the bluntness, but I would say you're really ignorant. In the same way that I would say, if you work for a faith-based organisation and you don't value your youth work, and you see your work with young people purely as an exercise to increase the number of young people that come to your church or to your mosque or to whatever it is that you're doing, shame on you, shame on you. Youth work has got value in and of itself. But the thing is, we can talk about stuff that isn't in a cloak and dagger kind of way. See, we all hold a faith perspective, whatever that might be, even if it's like you don't believe in God, you don't believe in anything, or you do believe in something. We all hold some faith perspective. And are guaranteed, when we work with young people, there's going to be a little bit of a rub, there's going to be a little bit of a tension when we come up against a different belief system that we think, oh, that doesn't really fit right. But what do we do with that, guys? See, I meet more and more young people who I'd say are wandering around aimlessly, with almost the weight of the world on their shoulders because they've got big questions that aren't being answered. Questions like, why did my friend commit suicide? Why did my dad leave me? What is the purpose of my life? And what do we do about that? Do we say, do you know what? Good question, but I'm a bit scared of upsetting my thunder by talking about faith. Do we say, oh, actually, I don't know enough. Go and talk to somebody else who does. What do we do with that? Do we say, oh, I can't talk about it, I might brainwash her? Or do we engage with that? See, I would say we're doing young people a disservice if we don't talk about this stuff. Because I think it's important. I think it's important to them and I think it's important to the work that we do with them. How can we talk about faith without fear? I think we need to put the F word back on the agenda. Thank you very much.